Welcome to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the podcast that cuts through the rubbish to explore the world of neurodiversity. I'm your host, Nic King.
And I'm your host, Kate Fox, and together we're here to explore, understand and celebrate being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. From ADHD and autism to dyslexia and other quirky brains, we talk about it all.
And go off on tangents. So whether you're neurodivergent, love someone who is, or you're just curious about neurodivergent minds, you are in the right place.
Let's get ready to juggle some words and maybe even a few chainsaws, metaphorically, of course. Hello, welcome to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. I'm Kate Fox, she is Nic King, and we're going to be talking today about how to regain spoons. Where can you get your new spoons from when you have lost them, in the sense of using spoon theory as a type of energy accounting. You're out of energy. Everything's gone. Maybe burnout's happening. How do you get them back? Nic, what are your top spoon restoration tactics?
Or just going to like the kitchen drawer and getting them and like throwing them at people? No? No? No. Fine. Top restoration tactics. The most easy and immediate one for me is going outside. So like sunshine, trees, rocks, running water, outside. However, I am very much a fair weather goey outside person. If it's very cold, if it's wet, if it's windy, I'm not quite there. And it's not that I don't have the wrong clothes, it's just that I don't like it.
Well, it's a sensory nightmare, isn't it? The spoons you're trying to get back are going to be immediately taken away by an icy blast of wind or some pattery, pittery rain, or your bodily temperature kind of fluctuating from Arctic fox to I'm trying to think of a tepid type of animal that's not actually hot.
An actual fox.
Oh yeah, an actual fox. They're probably sort of moderate temperature. Anyway, yeah, that's not going to help your spoons, is it? All that.
No, but in sunshine and like moderate weather, that is the quickest and easiest win for me. But because I am the planner. I like to sort of try and plan space in my week to do something. And even if that's very, very far ahead, because we can talk about the theatre, because that is Nic's big thing. Because that is always restorative. Always. Always. Even if I'm like low going in, that 2 hours of like a suspension of reality is always restorative.
See, and that is brilliant to know that you have that then, because I was going to say, but you've answered this. How do you know when you're planning and you're planning so far in advance often that you're going to have the spoons to get there? But this is really important because it's always guaranteed restorative. It doesn't
matter how low they are going in.
No, they will be higher after. Whereas for me, I at the moment do not, well, apart from swimming, actually, so swimming is guaranteed restorative, but there are so many sensory issues that surround whether that then fully functions as restorative. So if I could always swim in a moderate body of water, temperature-wise.
You mean outside as well? They might not know.
I also mean outside. I do.
Mean outside.
Yeah. Swimming inside can do it, but less guaranteed and harder to get to. So yeah, mine's a bit more nebulous than yours. And I don't know, how have you just always known that going to the theatre just was a boost, and therefore how conscious is it now, as this is something that I do that just always feels good and keeps me going?
It is extremely conscious now. Extremely conscious, and I have a considerable amount of 2025 booked out already. I have just very recently resisted booking into 2026. Did you hear Kate hit the floor there? Like the thing, yeah, like. But I have always gone to the theatre. I can't remember a time where I didn't go to the theatre. I didn't always go as much as I do now. But obviously there's a level of age, money, privilege, opportunity because we have in the Northeast quite a few lovely theatre venues. Um, but and in lockdown, it was one of the few things, you know how like you did that thing in lockdown where you analyze what wasn't working for you and what was working for you. Um, it was one of the things that I missed the most in lockdown. And I think it was that moment where I had loads of theatre booked in 2020. I was going regularly then. It was having it taken away from me that was like that was a full moment where I was like, oh, that's one of my real things. When somebody's taken away your option to do it, it was definitely a moment where I was like, oh no, this isn't really optional in my life. This is
Mm,
something I need. Um, because it disappeared. And it was one
yeah,
of the few things that disappeared where I was like, oh, okay.
that makes sense. It makes me see one of my guaranteed spoon restorers used to be reading. And it isn't now because I haven't always got the concentration to do it. So it can and it will if I can focus myself. And actually, an effect of lockdowns for me, though, was because I couldn't go and buy a new book, which I think probably is a spoon restorer. Being in a bookshop, actually, being in a bookshop, choosing a new book. But the reading of it could go either way as to whether that's a spoon restorer.
I'm finding and have found reading so much harder as I've gotten older. Because I did used to like reading. I used to find reading calming and relaxing and enjoyable. And then there was definitely sort of a point, I think, in my 30s, I want to say, where that it became harder. It just became a lot harder.
Yeah, no, same. And actually, I certainly heard a lot of people talk through the lockdowns about how their concentration had suffered and that impacted their reading. But I think also, particularly for neurodivergent people, I think if you are post-viral in some way, be it long COVID, be it ME, um, then one of the symptoms can be brain fog or lack of concentration, you know. Perimenopause, menopause impact
Yeah.
concentration, things like POTS and fibromyalgia. There are lots of things actually that cross over,
Huge amounts. Yeah.
basically. So, however, I'm reading a lovely book about a hare, someone basically so a hare as opposed to a rabbit, not a hair like on your
And not
head.
hair on your head.
No,
Yes.
uh, very busy journalist, classically pretty much burnt out. And then she rescues this little tiny baby hare very reluctantly. And she's bringing it up. I usually can find, I mean, I love a adopt an animal story and they learn from the wild animal. I think they're quite neurodivergent friendly stories because they're often having to empathize with the animal and how they think, feel, and process the world, which she is doing brilliantly. She's not even naming the hare. She's like, it's not, silly to give it a name. It's not my hair. Anyway, something about that reading that is very, very spoon giving, but I'm reading it pretty slowly. In the olden days, or if I was in a really concentrated phase, which I'm not currently, I'd have finished that in 3 hours. And I do wonder, is that an instance where should I make the effort? Should I make the effort? Because ultimately it would pay off and I would have more energy and concentration at the end of having read more of it than I have. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. But I think sometimes you've got to meet yourself where you are, aren't you?
Yes, yes,
And where
yes.
you are in life. Because I know there's lots of other things that I can and do, or can do, that restore spoons, but quite often you can't take children to them. Do you know what I mean? So like they become less of an option. And as my children grow, they will become more of an option again. And I don't know if they will still work, but the option will be back. But I think some things that you can do that will restore spoons, it's sometimes it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to get to that place. It's one of the reasons that I plan it in because if I'm low on spoons, I'm not necessarily in a position to like create space to gain some spoons back.
Yes. And this is where you kind of then have your quick wins, which are more about, I don't know, holding spoons steady, probably. So, for example, bit of scrolling, endless scrolling. Some of us can get into the. I've got healthier scrolling options, as in, so I'm one of the few people I know still on X, formerly known as Twitter. And actually, there are some really good accounts on there I follow that tend to be kind of meditative people and Buddhists. And one of them was like, even if you find yourself scrolling, you can still sort of feel your feet and feel the air kind of flowing around you. So he's kind of saying, ground yourself, be aware of yourself while you are doing this scrolling. I was like, that is pretty healthy, that. It wasn't saying, oh, get off your phone now and build a fence or something. It was acknowledging that's where I was, but also saying you don't have to dissociate and forget you have a body. And I really appreciated that, actually.
Bless you on X.
I actually
Yeah,
have
you're
to.
the only one left on there.
I think I'm the only one left, and then lots of a lot of weirdness.
I was actually at a theatre show the other day that wanted you to interact with it through X, and I had to reset my password.
Oh gosh,
I was like, this is rare.
yeah. Well, that is retro, and that's very because then we're yes, but because for many people, again, yeah. Well, Elon encountering Elon Musk and his world is not necessarily going to restore your spoons at this juncture in time, is it? Really? But then again, it may. What are other quick wins? So people do things like they have a bath or a shower. Again, can take spoons. People don't understand how many spoons having a shower in particular can actually take, but it can give you them too.
Are you more of a bath person? I'm more of a shower person. I would much rather have a shower.
Because of in an ideal world, I'd be more of a bath person, but the temperature is not consistent enough where I live for me to have. So I'm a shower person. It's ages since I've had a bath. If I had a really good bath, a really big bath, and a carpet. This is so much sensory stuff, and a carpet from the bathroom to my bedroom or living room. I think I'd be more of a cozy bath person, but no shower,
Shower.
shower, bath. Yeah.
And however much I will take the mick out of anyone that tells you to light a candle, because that's something you get, when you're a parent carer, somebody's like, have a bath, light a candle, and I could literally wring their neck. Which would probably be far more cathartic than lighting a candle. But I do actually like candles.
Yeah, because actually, a nice flickering warm light and possibly a nice smell, if it's not a horrible smell, is yeah, exactly. No, potentially, exactly. I did that, even though in fact I think I'm slightly allergic to smoke, but if it's a gentle candle, that can be a spoon restorer. Also, similarly, light related, I've got my galactic projector. So it's about 30 quid off Amazon. Other retail outlets are available that are more ethical. And it shines all lovely lights on the walls. And I've discovered when I've been putting that on, that really I'll just sit and stare at the lovely lights. And again, maybe that's not, I'm going to put that slightly more in the category potentially of spoon holding. Not going to take spoons to do that. Does it give me many spoons? Not necessarily. I don't know.
We have one of those. It's in the youngest's room. But I mean, even just maybe we sometimes you need to think about small wins. Like
Yeah.
we were recording the other day and I came on and I had a cup and you were like, what's in that? And I said hot Ribena. And you were like, ooh, hot Ribena. And then did you associate that with being like young and poorly, didn't you?
Yes, I would only have it. Yeah, my mum would give me it if I had a cold or was poorly, and it was
Yeah.
the ultimate comfort drink. Yeah.
And I think that
Love what you're hearing? Want to interact with us? Want to show your support? You can do all of that via our website, Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, where you can leave us a comment, you can send us an email, or you can leave a little tip via our PayPal link. And we appreciate all your interaction, support, and love.
That's exactly where I put it. I put it within like a comfort drink thing, but I also have it quite regularly because, sometimes life is stressful and little bits of comfort can go a long way.
And actually, tea, like my obsession is tea. And that is a spoon restorer. That tea, the nectar of the gods. I must have said this before. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. But do you know, even so I have counselling still at the moment every couple of weeks. And we once had a conversation about the importance of tea in my life and how ideally I would have it, if I've come in from somewhere. And the counsellors have this thing where it's generally a rule you don't give clients hot drinks in case they throw the hot drink over you. That would be in a
Risk assessment wise, it's fairly sound, yes.
But I think my counsellor was very aware I was not in the category of pouring a hot drink, especially if it's tea. How can it get rid of tea?
Wasting the
Pouring it
tea.
on someone. And she offered to make me a cup of tea at the start of each session. Oh, and that not only is that such a lovely act of care, and I think that's why she offered, but also in that situation of luckily she lives within walking distance. It's really good. She's 10 minutes away. But I make that transition, go into her house, sit down, and then there's a cup of tea to ease that transition. So let's say if I lost a spoon on the walk and the transition, then I get the spoon back with the cup of tea.
And there's something in that process, isn't there? Because I do drink tea, but I do more drink coffee. But I think there is something in the process of making it. So for me, that would be like grinding beans or boiling the kettle. And I tend to put it in a French press now. But I did have a period of doing it in other ways. But there's something in that sort of holding a bit of space for the wait for it. Do you know what I mean? For it to be brewed or for it to be ready.
Well, again, and it's easing a transition. You don't have to generally say if you were in any sort of meeting and everyone then has tea at the beginning, you don't really, while that tea is being made, you don't start the meeting. Well, what that gives you then is a natural 3 or 4 minutes of easing into something. And again, you've probably lost spoons on a journey or moving from somewhere to somewhere else. This kind of under-recognized thing of dealing with transitions. So yeah.
And you can, yeah. And we're gonna have in the new year, Tanya and David coming on to talk about like monotropic split and monotropic spiral. But that's exactly it, isn't it? It's often that you have to sort of multi-focus your attention, which can be very, very spoon heavy and lead to burnout. And that's sort of those small windows where you can smooth and ease transitions, or you can just smooth and ease yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
life is stressful. We are at the end of December and like nobody's not stressed.
No, exactly. No, it's okay. So what else? What else gives you spoons back?
I I don't even know if I can describe this in a way that people will be able to understand or visualize it. But I have quite a long corridor in my home because it's a bungalow, so it's quite a long house. So front of the house to the back of the house is about 20-ish meters. And there's a corridor through the most of it. Now, do we all remember watching Miranda?
I didn't
You
watch
didn't
Miranda.
watch Miranda. Well, she had this thing where she galloped.
I'm aware of her galloping.
We can gallop, right? And I find galloping up and down the run of my house very, very restorative. And I would imagine so Miranda Hart galloping down the corridor. And I think you could probably frame it within some sort of stim, but I think it's actually just proprioception realistically, because it's quite bouncy and it's quite sort of like heavy footed. And my children slash my cats look at me like I'm mental, but that's fine. And I think there's sort of that kind of level of, I don't know, I think when I was slightly younger, I used to like do the dancing around the house, dancing around the kitchen
Yes.
type thing.
Yeah.
but I think we've now just progressed to a level of 40 plus where we just don't care, where we're just now galloping. That's where we are. And I think, we're just accepting we're accepting that and sharing it with people now as well.
Quite right. And I think if someone now is inspired to gallop as a result of this and they restore their spoons, that is a good thing. But that makes me think one day we should do a podcast about unexpectedly neurodivergent coded shows and characters, because Miranda has got to be in there, I would have thought.
I will definitely put it on the list.
Yeah. I'm aware at the moment I'm not doing enough physical things to restore spoons. I particularly, there was a phase a couple of years ago where with my friend we were doing outside sessions, so we're outside again with a personal trainer, and we kind of split the cost, and there were a lot of things like games, so we would do hula hooping and boxing and throwing and catching the ball, and it was just really fun. That was very spoon restorative, very much. And there's a lot of, and then he preferred the personal trainer then to do the sessions inside in the gym, and neither of us found it as fun or restorative, sort of in this more sterile environment sort of thing. So I need something. I have not.
And often it can be really niche, isn't it? I know obviously you do outdoor swimming. I do a little bit of aerial, so that's, hanging upside down, that's good. And that's like it's a lot of pressure as well, because like when you're in silks and stuff like that, they are literally, bound around you, otherwise gravity is going to be an issue. I used to do a lot of exercise, but I've taken it down essentially now to just Zumba, because I do like dancing. I like to dance.
Yeah. Yeah, I do actually. I used to love Zumba Gold in the village hall in Dursk. Zumba Gold, so that's for, and I liked it because it was
Slightly
more
slower paced.
slower pace, and also because then I was the youngest at Zumba Gold, because gold kind of means over 60, and even now I'm 49. I think I was 43, 44 then. And the music would be nicer, instead of it being pumping house music, it'd be things like Kylie's songs, and it was lovely. And maybe I need to do that. Yeah. So it's a bit like an ongoing, I think, for those of us who are still unmasking, still discovering who we are post-diagnosis, there's a whole world to discover about what gives you energy. I think for many of us also, I think I might be on the verge of, I think it's maybe come across my field of vision, might be a bit of a fibromyalgia issue, might be in denial about it a little bit. Had a conversation with someone who, it's a classic combo, absolutely classic autistic person in their 40s, perimenopausal, all their joints and things ache. They have tenderness.
So a lot of us are very bendy and would definitely fit within a hypermobility thing. But yeah, lots of chronic pain. But if I don't move, I end up in more pain.
No, and there's some paradoxes here, because what is it? So exertion of any sort can really mess with people who are dealing with things like ME and long COVID. But then at the same time, some movement can also be very restorative. These things are, I would say, they're individual, they're contextual, they will change over time. What used to work for you a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago may not work for you now. It's probably a bit of an ongoing process of discovery.
Yes, I think because life changes in life. Obviously we're both here self-employed and we have fluctuating workloads, quite literally. And some people have a slightly more steady workload, but then, there's all sorts of demands in life, be that children, be your parents, be, friends, partners. There's a fairly endless list, isn't there? And your capacity versus need is often very, very fluctuating. But at the same time, if we're not managing energy and we're not managing with spoons, you're just going to burn out. that's, that's it. And I think we need to actively be thinking about it. And that's part of the understanding of your neurodivergence, isn't it? That period of like active thinking and analyzing and what works, what's bringing me joy.
And then joy, bring joy, and the opposite of triggers, which is glimmers.
Yeah.
These are good clues to things that bring you spoons. If you have a glimmer while doing something, chances are it is a restorative activity.
Maybe you need to explain glimmers. Maybe glimmers is new to them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did say opposite of triggers, but I suppose I could say more. So a trigger being something that gives you perhaps a full body physiological and psychological response of ugh, and a kind of trauma is activated, fight, flight, or freeze. Glimmer is the opposite. There's a full body, yay. And the
I was
opposite
waiting for a different ooh there, but okay, we'll take you.
Andrew, ooh. And the opposite of fight, which would be don't know what's the opposite of fight? Peace.
Peace, maybe.
And the opposite of flight, like going towards something, and the opposite of freeze, of looseness and flow, important word. One of my key glimmers at the moment, and it's interestingly non-physical, is at Quaker meetings. But I don't think all Quaker meetings. I think I'm quite lucky with the one I go to, because basically you sit really quietly. Oh, it's so lovely, so quiet. People sit quietly. It's no small talk. You sit quietly, and then occasionally someone will stand up, say something quite profound, and the profound thing will often connect with what other people were thinking about or had said, because it's a meeting of quite creative people. So I'm seeing it as like it's licensed free association in a group. It's very glimmery for me because there's a lot of interesting stories that come up and words and thoughts, and I get warm feelings. I don't know how many Quakers would describe, but again, they would. They talk about light and feeling light and all sorts of stuff. You don't have to be religious, by the way, to go to they're weirdly not, some of them. Anyway, that has become but I could never have predicted this was not on my top list of totally, Kate. What you need, right, to restore your spoons once a week on a Sunday in a busy time is to crack on to Quakers. What? That all came about accidentally. Someone suggested I might like this particular group, and I went, and it was full of glimmers, which is why I know that going is a really good thing for me to do. I don't have to force myself. It's not like I must go to Quakers. I'm like, yay, exciting things going to happen in my brain and body. I'm totally getting off on going to Quakers. Don't tell the Quakers I said it like that. They might expel me. I don't think that's the thing.
And I think there is something in that, not particularly necessarily Quakers, but I think often when I talk to other neurodivergent people who are like, sat in their neurodivergence and their understanding for quite a long time, often the things that they find glimmers in is very, very niche. Like it's very, very specific and often quite random. And there is something in that. And I don't know how like you start going about signposting people like along that path to find their niche thing. I don't think I've figured out how to do that for other people. But I hope our listeners are along that road. I hope they're finding their random and niche path to something incredibly random. And maybe until they get there, they can find those small things, the cups of tea and the Ribena and the candles, or just the little things in life that can give you enough peace and ideas for you to maybe go out and find the really random niche thing that really, really works for you.
And one of those things is probably listening to our podcast. We are nothing if not signposting to these niches and encouraging these glimmers and spoon restorative moments. So enjoy.
Thanks for tuning in to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. We're so glad you joined us today to explore the fascinating world of neurodivergence with your hosts, me, Nic King.
And me, Kate Fox. If our conversation sparked a thought, a question, or even a smile, don't keep it to yourself. Drop us a line at hello@neurotypicals.don't-juggle-chainsaws.co.uk or visit our website, neurotypicals.don't-juggle-chainsaws.co.uk, to write in. We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, consider leaving us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform.
Until next time, keep embracing the unique ways you juggle the chainsaws of life.